host, Laura Moreno Lucas. You may know me from Pandocap, where I provide media and news updates on the capital markets. So what we're talking about today is SPACs. So what are SPACs? It's special purpose acquisition companies.
A ton of activity in Southern California and within our audit practice. And we're getting a lot of calls from our clients, private clients that are either thinking about doing a SPAC transaction and are preparing for one.
About a year ago, people hadn't necessarily heard of COVID, and people hadn't heard things like SPAC-a-palooza and SPAC-offs, which are all now totally part of today's vernacular. I think you're seeing managers that were never in this space before. Now, instead of being part of a private equity firm or some other purchasing vehicle, now very legitimate folks are entering into this. So it's just a legitimization process. I think it's really as simple as that. And once it's been legitimized, now the floodgates are open.
Insurance for an IPO the same as a SPAC?
The D&O is your most important thing to review to see if it's worthwhile purchasing. All of the other property and casualty insurances will all stay the same, general liability, property, depending on what type of a risk you are, your product liability, things of that nature, but nothing else changes.
Laura, I guess the one thing I would add just on this whole question about the fees is, especially if you're working with reputable firms and an experienced team, there's a market rate for everything, right? And so you should be paying about what's market. And as long as you're paying about what's market, don't worry about the fees. What's important is the $150 million that you're going to pull into your company that's going to allow you to create a whole lot of value with that, right? If you can't use that $150 million, don't raise the money. If you can, it's a good investment regardless of what the fees are.
I think the bottom line for you as private companies is that at the end of this process, and there's some different gyrations you'll go through each one, but you'll end up being a public company. That the difference is, and that going the IPO process is a well-worn path, and people know how to do it. The SPAC process is really more of a combination of a merger transaction, an IPO transaction, and a private placement, because most companies will also raise private capital, what's known as a PIPE, at the same time. So you're really doing 3 different transactions.
I've been in the accounting profession for more than 20 years, and the one thing I've learned is that timelines are fickle. Right, I've had a lot of clients that say, I'm going to go public next year, and it doesn't happen next year, it may happen 5 years from now. And so what I would say is, I would start, if you want to do a SPAC transaction or an IPO, invest in those things that are going to benefit you, whether you're a public company or a private company first.
Happy holidays to everybody. We hope 2021 is much better than 2020. And if you would like to join us on future CFO Focuses, you can check us out at www.cfofocusforum.com.